Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanum, pakhair agale, ni hao, shurushumme, washmale. Ohio gozaimasu, guten Morgen, hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabia, balli kiraya. Hosh Galdin and I was Iron. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague, who happens to be Miss Sati. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and today happens to be Tuesday over here in Islamabad, since we go out in 46 different countries, and there can be different time zones. So yes, we are going to stick to Tuesday. And let's see, first things first, what my wonderful host needs to say in the first place. So hello Haja, how have you been?
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. So I think the set was missing your energy.
Thank you so much.
Your energy is so sky high. I think it wasn't just the set that was missing you. A lot of people were also missing you, right?
Exactly.
So where were you?
Yeah, okay, so a lot of people have been writing
Okay.
to me on my Twitter, on my
Wonderful.
Instagram, that, why aren't you actually appearing on your morning show? So, ladies and gentlemen, my morning show obviously ranks on #1 in my priorities, and, whoever I am is because of the fact that I've done this morning show for the longest period of time.
True.
From the very start till now, it's been 9 years.
Right.
So it's not that I'm not, kind of interested in doing it,
Right.
because we work for Pakistan Television and we have a lot of other channels. So whenever the administration thinks that, hey, you know what, you can do this for us too as well. So we really need to take time off so that we can do justice with that one job, which has been awarded to us by our administrators, or people who think that
Alhamdulillah.
you're capable of doing that. Shukr alhamdulillah in the first place.
Right.
So since it's for Tri-Nations, and the Tri-Nation series actually started at 7 and ended at 10 or 11. So,
Yeah.
Since we go live from 10 till 11, so really didn't had that time. So now when I had time, I'm here, but from 22nd, I'll be on PTV Sports as well. So thank you very much for asking. Thank you very much for writing to me. And it really made my heart go so big that, that people are actually loving the content we share with audiences.
Wonderful.
What about you?
It's lovely to have you back, brother. So, Shahzad, are you the sort of a person, because I know you have a headphones, right?
Yeah.
So, are you the sort of person who hates charging up the headphones?
Yes, I am. And,
Okay.
I have a solution for that. So imagine what I did was
Wonderful.
that just because, I would certainly forget that I had to
Right.
charge my headphones, what I did was, and, it was a regular problem for me. So what I did was that I actually gave my headphone charger to a person in my gym, and
Okay.
whenever I enter the gym, I would just give him the headphones and he would put them on charge. But imagine,
Right.
this is something which is amazing, which we are sharing on television as of now. So solar powered headphones, and they charge up to
Wonderful.
80 hours.
Right.
But I believe that it's for the people who are actually going to go out in the sun and listen to some music, no?
No, so the solution that proposed is that it's not actually the sun which is going to charge them, so the artificial light inside the room can also charge them.
Really?
Right. And a lot of people are saying that this model can't be applied to mobile phones, because mobile phones are usually in our pockets where there's a lack of access to the light, so it can't work in that way. But then again, we can't predict exactly what the technological future can lead us to, but then again, it's a very good step, because this is going to curb our carbon footprint, and we
True.
certainly need those solutions when it comes to technology, because obviously we are living in a world which is affected severely by the climate change.
But Hajar,
so green solutions are always
yeah.
welcome, right?
But we have even spoken about that, that we might think that, just because that we're not charging, just because that we're not using electricity
Right.
is actually going to lesser the carbon footprint. But well, that's not how it is.
Right.
Because all of those batteries we are making, is going to produce a lot of carbon to itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think one way or the other, we really need to come up with a smarter solution. But yes, hey, you know what?
Small steps are always fine, no?
Small steps are always fine, and it's
Right.
headphones. So, let's see where it's going to go. But
Right.
80 hours charge, I think you charge it once.
Right.
And then there's no need for you to charge. I think it's a lot of convenience, and that's something which people want these days.
Exactly, and a lot of critics are saying, just like you mentioned it, that this is called greenwashing, because a lot of tech companies, they're marketing their product in a way that they want people to buy them up and make them feel more socially responsible, but that actually not being socially responsible, because just you mentioned that the charger or the batteries that are coming up, they are made from the silicon or something like that,
yes,
and
EON
that
batteries.
consumes a lot of energy, a lot of carbon footprint, so that's exactly not the green solution that we are wondering.
And those batteries do not even decompose. So imagine once they're not of
Lot
any
of
use,
garbage, yeah.
we cannot do anything about it.
Right. So moving on to a favorite segment, which is of the top stories. So our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has visited the Sobatpur as he arrived in the district Khusdar on a day-long visit to review the arrangements of the relief and rehabilitation. Prime Minister proposed taking on board the water engineers and hydrologists to recommend suggestions in line with the post-flood studies. He feared that the epidemics in communicable diseases could become a big challenge if the water took months to recede. Shehbaz Sharif directed to ensure availability of drinking water among the flood-affected people. For the next crop season, he said arrangements for distribution of seeds to locals were in progress, and added that 5 billion rupees had been dispersed among flood victims of the Balochistan under the Benazir Income Support Program, as each household was given 25,000 rupees to meet their needs. The Prime Minister said in order to facilitate the flood-struck population, the government has exempted charging of 300 units in electricity bills during August and September.
Wow.
So you know what, Shehzad, I think the Benazir Income Support Program is a wonderful program, and it's an indigenous solution to alleviating poverty, not just the poverty, and also fighting the climate injustices.
Exactly. And once obviously all of those basic needs are met, only then people can actually think outside the box, and this is something which we certainly need in the times to come. And we're thankful to the government of PMLN and Mia Muhammad Shehbaz Sharif Saab, because he happens to be a very efficient and I think a very visionary Prime Minister our country needed at this time of crisis. So thank you very much to the entire team who's been actually putting in effort and making sure that wherever may our brethren be in difficult times, that we go and curb those menaces so that they can actually live a healthier life. And that's it. That's what a Prime Minister is supposed to think about. So thank you very much, Mia Muhammad Shehbaz Sharif Saab. But moving on, I think we really need to talk about our children who have been performing really very well. So after the excellent performance of the Pakistan street child football team in World Cup, a grand welcome ceremony was organized at the National Press Club, Islamabad. Prominent political and social figures of the country participated in the ceremony. Patron-in-Chief of Pakistan Sweet Home Zamrood Khan, Chairman Muslim Hands Peer Sayyid Lakhte Hasnain, Sayyid Zia-ul Noor Shah, President PFUJ Afzal Butt, and other dignitaries were also present in the ceremony. Pakistan street child football team finished runner-up in the Street Child Football World Cup. In the final, Egypt beat Pakistan on penalty shootouts. Wow, that was a close competition.
So it's great that I think the sporting events are taking place and our kids and children are participating in those sort of events, right, Shehzad?
Yeah.
Because I think Shehzad is himself a sports person, so he loves the energy, the adrenaline rush and whatnot, right?
Yeah. I like it. Even when I'm watching a lot of matches and then, doing our analysis on PTV Sports, I certainly do feel like playing it myself as well. There are a few things which you want to do with the ball. Since I'm a bowler and I feel like, hey, you know what, if I'm, going in with a speed of 120, 130 kilometers per hour, I just want it to go towards the off or towards the in, So I think it just comes naturally. And I want each and every kid out there to kind of have this passion in them, so that they kind of really do not deviate in life, do healthier things and have healthier activities and have healthier friends around you. That'll certainly kind of promise you having a very healthier future.
Right. And I think today's 21st century can't be more better time to lead a more healthier life, because the sort of the lives that we are living, and they're not healthy at all, right? So we need to be more healthy and careful about our lifestyles. So Shehzad, we also know that we are living in a century, in a point of the time that Pakistan is affected by a lot of calamities and calamities that are induced by the climate change. And those sort of calamities obviously invite a lot of intervention, especially the humanitarian responses, the responses of the government organizations and other people who really want to help the people in the distress, right? So in the global south, in the poor countries, of course, the government does not have that massive resources to cater to each and every individual out there. And that creates a space for a lot of NGO'S, humanitarian aid workers who can intervene, who can go out there.
And individuals like us.
Right. Philanthropists, individuals like us, who can go out there and help people in distress, to help people who are actually in need. So to talk more about it and how exactly is the role of the humanitarian aid workers and actually how media interacts with all of this organization, we have some wonderful guests in the studio. And before introducing us, Shehzad wants to say
in addition to
something.
that, the only thing I would want to say is that, when such a calamity struck, obviously a lot of Pakistanis have been out there helping other people. But there's one thing which majority of the people do ask, and that is that, okay, what can we do? So rather than asking what you can do, I think it's all about, putting your words into action, making sure that you're at least out there, providing support, may it be sitting down with somebody, sharing their burden, all of these things. But to learn today whether what an individual can do, God forbid if such a problem occurs, what an NGO needs to do, what all of these organizations have been working for the welfare of the people, what do they need to do is something which we will be learning today. It's going to be a great day, because this is something which I tell my daughters every single day. Bete, you know, whenever they come to say goodbye while they're leaving for school, so I always tell them, Bete, I hope that you're going to learn something new today. So with that hope, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce our wonderful guest over here inside the studios. We're very lucky to have been joined by this amazing person who happens to be an education leader, trainer, a social reformer. Ladies and gentlemen, she is Miss Mira. Malik. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm wonderful, alhamdulillah, and I hope both of you are doing very well.
Alhamdulillah, we like the same energy, you know, you were on the same level. You know, it's very rare that we actually find guests who have the same energy level, and you know, it feels wonderful. I feel ecstatic, we feel ecstatic, you know, on the contrary. But yes, let's get started. So today we are here to learn.
Yes.
Most of the times whenever, God forbid, such a problem occurs, probably it may be in our neighborhood, you know, we certainly do not know how to help. And the only thing which kind of does not let us help other people is, yeah, what if, you know, they don't like it, you know. So for example, if somebody is in need of food, they live in an E11 neighborhood and we go to them and they might look at us like, hey, you know what, do you think that we certainly need food? You know, things like that can happen and that can be very embarrassing. So what should we do?
I think first and foremost, let's start educating our people.
Okay.
Let's start with schools.
Yeah.
Let's start, we as teachers, as trainers, start telling people it's all right to ask for help.
True.
You know, one of the stigmas that we have in our society, or the taboos, is do not tell that you are in trouble. Do not share your problems. Do not ask for solutions, because you are going to be considered as a weak person.
True.
So one of the things is this. Secondly, we are all in our capacity are able to contribute, whether small or big, towards any kind of calamity or adversity that we may face. One of the things that I keep on telling everyone, I started off with this thing called digital sadka. Like if there's absolutely nothing that you can do, probably just pick up your phone and click and share some information.
True.
And this is a digital sadka.
Yeah.
So, you know, for you, you're just relaxing, you have your phone with you, and there's no harm. You know, somebody has shared, you know, blood bank information, just share it in your groups. And somebody must have, you know, shared about a charity work. Somebody is spread the word. I mean, people are so conscious. Like every time I ask somebody, you know, just why don't you post this? You know, I'm really particular about what I post. Mecca, who are you? Paris Hilton? Everybody is worried. Like, come on, be real. We need to be here for each other.
True.
We need to give. I mean, when you're talking about NGOs, so many people would say, no, we don't trust the NGOs, you know, because, you know, I mean, we don't know what their invested interests are and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we get it. But the point is, there isn't any country in the world without NGOs. NGOs are kind of a partners with the government. They facilitate, they cover the gap, they identify needs, they assist in policy making.
They do all the research work.
I think the only country that doesn't have an NGO, that's North Korea. And we know why, because it's something really creepy happening inside that country.
Yeah.
We don't know.
I mean, this
and
is
they
what
don't
media
also.
is telling us. We really don't know what is happening inside
exactly.
the country.
And they don't want the people to know.
And I believe that, you know, Hajar's made a very valid point, because imagine that this is how,
Maybe
you know,
they
the
have the
Western
NGOs.
media might have been propagating about us as
true.
well. So, you know, if the people are happy of North Korea, we certainly do not have anything against them. So let's not go down there, but yes, please.
Peace.
Okay.
One of the things is this. And secondly, we in our own capacity, particularly when we are talking about floods at the moment, when we talk about an individual can mobilize your community, your family, your friends, and you don't have to go, I mean, really an extra mile for it. Maybe a phone call, a WhatsApp message, and people are going to donate clothes, food. And when it comes to, probably the credibility of NGOs might not be that high, but when it comes to international ranking of how Pakistanis give, I mean, we rank amongst the highest.
True.
Because that comes within us. We
We're
are
ranked
very
on number
generous.
one, being the most philanthropic nation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alhamdulillah.
So let's continue doing that. Let's start spreading the word. Let's start supporting somebody who's doing it. Like I'm sitting here, I might not be able to go in those areas, but I can definitely find somebody to support, or, you know, to assist somebody who is actually working there.
Yeah.
So I know Muhammad Bilal, he's a part of, he is not a part of any NGO. Independently, this young boy from Bunny Chalk, he just called his friends and he said, let's do something about it.
True.
And within no time, he was able to collect goods worth 37 lakhs.
Wow.
37 lakhs. And he took with him 6-7 trucks to up to the northern areas wherever they were afflicted. And he was like really amazed to see that there were barely any government assistance over there. It's not fair to keep on blaming the government every time something
True.
like this happens.
True.
Although they should be really well prepared, we do not need to, have a calamity to equip ourselves better. But however, it's not possible. And a place like Pakistan, where in every hour we have around 570 children are born every hour.
MashaAllah.
770 child is born every hour. So
Alhamdulillah.
what do you expect, the government to do? To open up a school after 1 hour?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the resources. We have very limited
course.
I
resources.
mean, we can even do
prepared.
better.
I mean, like we can,
We
take
really need to come-
responsibility of ourselves.
We
you
can
know.
even do better as Pakistanis. I think we can go up to 1,000 child per hour, 2,000 child. I think we can do that.
Okay,
There's
enough
something
with the
which we can do.
overpopulation jokes. Preparedness is always important. of
Preparedness
course.
is very important. You
But-
should be prepared.
right.
But however, on the other hand, I mean, there are 1,000 of ways that you can contribute,
But
starting
these
with
figures,
yourself.
But these
But
figures
is it-
you've shared, these are post-COVID figures or amidst-COVID figures. So
These
really,
are the
it totally
figures.
depends, yes, because nobody
All
was
right.
going anywhere.
Okay,
They
let's.
thought, hey, you know what?
Even as per today, 18,758 children born every day in Pakistan.
Mashallah.
Chalo, even if we say, okay, maybe probably this has to do with COVID, let's reduce it to 15,000 per day.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, not only 3,000 will have an
come
impact
on.
from COVID, but okay, I think we are diverting our
okay,
conversation
yes,
here.
Yes,
True.
of course. I really wanted to ask you, what are the key questions that NGOs or humanitarian aid workers need to ask when they are intervening in a particular area that is afflicted by the disaster? Because I do remember there was this case study that I read that a German NGO intervened in some African village and they planted there the post office. And the matter of the fact is that the entire village was illiterate. There was no point of putting out the
Absolutely.
post office. So
Yes.
that was a very, not a trickle-down approach. They were implementing it from the top to down. So what are the key questions that
In
you need
fact,
to ask?
Pakistan is so diverse. that
Right.
What might be applicable for Sindh might not be applicable for
True.
GB or Gilgit-Baltistan.
true.
So one of the things that NGO actually need to do is talk to the native.
True.
Ask them for their needs and for their goods. I remember in the earthquake, on 2005
Five.
earthquake, we received a donation of, I don't know, 10,000 ties. And we were wondering what to do with the tie.
True.
So, but then again, we use them for some other purposes to make ropes out of them or whatsoever. But ask the native what they want. At the moment, this is not going to be over in 5, 6, 8 months.
Right.
This rehabilitation process is going to take
Years,
years,
yeah.
right? So probably the first thing that everybody has done pretty well is to provide them with the basic necessity, food and water.
Right.
This is the basic necessity. Maybe in the next phase, we are going to look into a restructuring of schools. So normalizing the life for the children. And like one of the things that I'm very eagerly working on is what can we do to provide them a livelihood? 7 lakh kettles died in floods.
Right.
So that is the whole the income that a family generates from. And there is going to be a lack of meat and butter and milk in the market in
Right.
few months. But we need to equip them financially.
True.
Right.
Once they have their finances intact, only then they can talk about education.
Exactly.
You cannot keep on, asking them, send your children to school when you don't have enough to eat also. So
Right.
first thing first, I think clothing, shelter comes first, and then after that, maybe let's start working on their livelihood. And it's an exemplary example that I live in Bahria town, and there's this one boy to nahi, I don't know, he must be,
Man?
he's someone, I think 27, 28 year
27,
old. He's
yeah.
a very young
I
chap.
think boy is fine.
Boy is fine.
Yeah.
And
Keeping
this
myself in consideration. Yeah.
single-handedly, this boy has created a page for Bahria town people.
Okay.
And he has visited the flood-affected areas. He has come back with a data of 200 families. What he has requested was very simple. Can we find somebody who can support one family, just one family, for 11,000 a month?
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed by the response he got.
Mashallah.
Amazed. see one person, if he can do so much, why can't NGOs, why not institutions? And let's not restrict ourselves to NGOs. Look at the offices that we have, the corporate sector, and this is not the time, you know, to take a lot of pictures and keep on posting, you know. Unfortunately, we see more media personals and flashes than the ones who are actually
there's no
taking
harm in it.
pictures.
You know, what if you totally do inspire a lot of people to do the same?
I agree, but it should be for the sake of inspiration.
Obviously.
You know, we do come across a lot of people who do it for personal gain or mileage. That is fine too. But I would request, whenever you're posting these pictures, kindly cover their faces.
Okay.
Let's not.
Yeah, for the people who are actually,
Yes,
you know, getting all of those
Yes.
amenities which you've bought for them, I think,
Coming
yes,
back
that's
to your
important.
first question, when you're knocking at the door
You
of
started
somebody
from
who is in
education.
E11, that if you want help, it's a matter of self-respect and dignity. So let's not violate that.
And in addition to that, you know, what I wanted to say is that there's always a better way to do things, you know. So, for example, imagine that, you know, so this is how the run order is, that if you are to help somebody, first of all, it needs to be your family, then it needs to be, you know, your parents, and then you come down, so it needs to be your brothers and sisters, then you come down, people around you, you know, your staff who works with you, and even if then, you know, there's nobody you can find, then Allah says that, you know, you can give in my way as well. So, you know, this is how we need to do it. So people are around, we do know that they're in trouble, they're in problem, we really need to help them. But now what I need to ask is that, you know, where I was saying that there are better ways of doing it. So imagine you going to somebody saying, hey, you know what, I bought this for myself, and I feel that, you know, it is actually very helpful due to the problems we are facing, so why don't you have it as well? You know, so there's no need for saying कि हम charity ही कर रहे हैं, कि हम donation ही दे रहे हैं.
That reminds me that we there is an embassy who did not even want us to name them, but they have sent cartons of rations, right? And they said, kindly tell them it's a hadiya, it's not a donation, and please give each one of it to your staff members, to your families. So we have given it to the teachers, to the students, and they felt good that it's a hadiya. I mean, as you say, it's just better way of...
Exactly, and you know, I have an example to quote over here as well. So imagine when I go towards PTV Sports office, you know, so there are these massive farmhouses and nurseries.
Right.
So one of these gentlemen, he's actually put up a very amazing banner outside his house or farmhouse, you know, and what he says is कि आप आज शाम के खाने पर हमारे मेहमान बनिए. You know, so there's this poster which has been out there for the past 7 years I've been going, you know, so and every day, alhamdulillah, there are a lot of people who go for food, and it's such a good way to ask people कि आप आज शाम के खाने पे हमारे मेहमान बनिए. For people who do not understand Urdu, you know, so let me say it in English that, you know, that this gentleman, the owner of that particular farmhouse and area, actually requests people to please give us the pleasure of your company over dinner or, you know, whatever it is, you know, tonight or every single day, and he's been doing it. You know, so he's not saying कि अगर आप भूखे हैं तो आप आ जाएं, हम आपको खाना खिलाएंगे. But he's saying आप हमारे मेहमान बन जाएं, give us your company. I think that's the way to do it.
Right. It's a very polite way of asking them to come, and they want to be their host, right?
Emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
Right,
you know?
right.
Use better words, better vocabulary.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
That's all.
So talking about the humanitarian aid workers, right? So there's a lot of criticism leveled on their activities because their stated goals are another, their real aims are another thing in the first place. So how do you deal with that? I mean, so for example, when you're going into the community, especially the international humanitarian aid actors, so they might face a lot of resistance because people might not be that much receptive to their presence into the area because they might say that they are agents of someone else. So what is your response on that?
I think our people have learned in least 40, 50 years how to go about it, and also did the INGO'S. They also now extremely particular whom are they sending. Is that person going to be, will that person be able to gel in, or are the natives going to be comfortable talking to that person or not? They have actually marked it down, and I think to a wider area, they have a lot of acceptance. They have a lot of acceptance for foreigners coming in. We have seen celebrities coming in.
Wonderful.
And you are a celebrity,
Thank you so
you know,
much.
alhamdulillah, so are you. I think you have the capacity to influence people, go out, and people want to see your face, and there's no harm. If they want to take 3 selfies with Shahzad,
not?
you know, why not? You know, go ahead and do it.
That's why we're here, and you know, I keep on telling people, you know, never be shy. And, you know, there are people who've actually come up to me and be like, sir, you know, you're so tall. Whenever we see you, we were like, okay, you might be angry. And I was like, why would I be angry? But thank you very much, Mira, Malik Saiba, for being with us.
My pleasure.
It was lovely
Thank
to
you
be in
so much.
conversation. And you know what? It's always amazing to be in conversation with people who actually kind of represent the education sector. And the reason is that they're so habitual of giving lectures that that they make our jobs easier. So
Knowledge comes naturally.
So you ask them this question, and they will take
Yes.
their time, and they will make you understand the entire concept, and which is why we love teachers, which is why we are here today.
I'm very proud to be a teacher.
Alhamdulillah. And
Alhamdulillah,
we are at the same time, we are very proud to have you as teachers as well. Thank you very
so
much
very
for being
much.
with us.
Jazakallah.
And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we actually want to head out towards a short break. Once you guys will come back, we really need to be it's going to be a profile interview, because this gentleman has achieved quite a lot. This gentleman has raised his voices, being outside Pakistan, that too, about extremism, about terrorism, not just that, people who unfortunately have been into drug addiction, people, when it comes down to grooming, people who've been imprisoned, just without no cause or reason. He's been that person who's been fighting for all of those people. How did he do that? How did he went on to this journey? Is something which we will be talking about, and we're looking forward to learn today. So let's see what he has to share. With that, we're actually heading out towards a
Short break.
Yes. Good morning.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, Shahzad briefed us about who's going to be our guest. It's going to be a profile interview, so he, I think, spilled some beans around it. So we are very glad and we are very honored that we have been joined by someone who is making quite a name for himself. And of course, when he makes a name for himself, he's also making a name for the community, for the country,
for the entire Muslim Ummah.
For the entire Muslim Ummah who's been out there. And I think this is the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you are able, that you're in such a position that Allah has granted you, that you're able to help out the people who are in the distress, who are in the need. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce our guest. He happens to be Muhammad Shafiq. He is a social activist, humanitarian and campaigner. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much for that warm words. I hope I can live up to that expectation.
You truly deserve it, and
you, Allah
for the
bless you.
kind of work you've been doing ever since, I think it goes back in
When I had
2000.
hair. It started when I had hair.
With that statement of yours, you're actually scaring me too as well, because I'm just somewhere around having no
looking,
hair or hair.
It's looking all right from here.
Yeah, it should look all right from here. That's what the purpose is. But Shafiq bhai, thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. You obviously represent Ramadan Foundation. You're here on behalf of the Penny Appeal. The gentleman was here.
The UNICEF founder was here. Was he in this very same seat?
Yeah. So imagine the best part over here is that we are definitely going to talk about your life and the journey. But first things first, since Pakistan has been struck by a calamity which we have never seen in the past years, of the very, the entirety of Pakistan, we have never seen such massive floods.
True.
So you're here, first of all. What are you doing for the people who've been affected by the floods? What kind of services are being provided? Let's start from there, and then we'll come down to your life journey.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of Penny Appeal, when the floods first happened, we've got Penny Appeal Pakistan office.
Yep.
They sprung into action, and they were able to get on the ground to help people immediately with food and shelter, and provide that emergency support. And then back in the UK, we recognised that there was a real acute need. People wanted to do something, and they wanted really to help Penny Appeal. And our donors are very special to us. Whenever we've asked them to give, they've given. So I led the appeals on our TV channel, British Muslim TV, which we did, and we raised a phenomenal amount of money. And I wanted to come out to Pakistan because, being a second generation British Pakistani, coming back to Pakistan is always special because it's the land of our forefathers. It's where our parents were born and grew up. And so I have this kind of spiritual connection here with my Sufi Sheikh of Ngos Sharif, but also in Kohat for their annual Urs. But I think wanted to come down to actually travel to some of the affected areas to meet the people and to distribute aid, and that's what we've been doing.
And it's great, so it feels amazing that when people, the expats, they come down to Pakistan. So, and it always makes me think that what kind of a feeling or an emotion do you go through when you get to know that your Pakistani brethren is in difficult times? The entire community, what do they think about? While you were in UK and you were hearing all of these news about floods and the destruction which has taken place, what kind of an emotional roller coaster do you guys go?
And what is your assessment on the ground? How's the situation out there?
So in terms of the first question, I just think it's one of despair. Emotionally, we have this connection to this land. Pakistan's our, if you like, our original homeland. And you see the country facing the trauma that it does. I'm proud of the fact that Penny Appeal's on the ground, but I'm even more proud of the donors. Ordinary Pakistani working class people. Life is tough in the UK, cost of living crisis and everything. People give, and they give huge amounts of money. And I was here. I went to Rajampur. I went to Nashore Feroz in Sindh. I went to Faizpur. I went to a village called Bumbali. About 2 miles. It's crazy names. I got to learn. I got to go to places that I didn't even know existed.
True.
And alhamdulillah, we distributed winter campaign because the winter coming ahead. I know the government here in Pakistan is already, provincial and federal government have said it's one of the most acute times, and the people are going to suffer from the cold. And so we provided blankets, we provided winter clothes, hot cooked food, medical equipment as well, and lots of work. There's a commitment from Penny Appeal. You've heard it from Adeem Yunus when he was here. That long-term commitment to Pakistan, and that's manifested in our love for the land as well.
Exactly, and it's great. But at the same time, what I want people to realize over here, 46 different countries, wherever we might be seen as of now. Ladies and gentlemen, for these expat communities to come down to Pakistan and help their Pakistani brethren, what you really need to realize is that this energy crisis is real and it's global. So, just a few days ago, there were two of my friends who were traveling from UK. I think the place is Nelson.
Nelson, just up the road from me. It's about half an hour from where I live.
Just an hour away from Manchester, probably. So, what they were doing is that they were doing a lot of aid work and they didn't want it to be on TV. I asked them even. But while I was having this conversation, imagine what they were worried about. They were worried about that their monthly electricity bill from £200 to have gone up to £500 roughly, or £600, and then even the fuel cost has gone up. And even then, while I was seeing that, that they were worried about what's going to happen back home, because not everybody's earning quite a lot over there, and people happen to be laborers at factories and whatnot. So, so every day, and they really need to look after their people back home over here. So they're sending a large amount of money while staying in box rooms over there in London and elsewhere. So imagine that feeling which I got, that even though that they might be going or suffering from a difficult time, but they're putting their Pakistani brethren first. And that really needs to be appreciated. So thank you very much to each and every one of you for that.
And I just say on that, I think it blows your mind. When you think about what you've just said. When my father's generation came in the early 60s, there was no mosque, there was no infrastructure. They helped build a Muslim community, and they're all working class people. They're not rich people. They were working in the mills, and they manifested themselves in being humble, but they never lost that connection with Pakistan. And I think that's one of the things I kind of learned from my parents, which was Pakistan lives in our hearts. Put the political differences aside and whatever goes on day to day, I think that connection overseas Pakistanis has to the land has to be recognised and celebrated.
And it's likewise from either way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, wonderful. So while I was going through your website, I came across
some background checks you were doing.
So I came across that you are having the channel with the name of Ummah channel, right? So why did you feel the need of having this channel? Do you think that, and I do feel that the research which is coming from the Muslim expat communities from abroad is really good, especially in terms of Islam, and especially how they're incorporating the Islamic ideals and values beyond the very Eurocentric lens that we are looking to the world. So why did you feel the need to have the Ummah channel?
I wasn't the founder, I was a presenter on the channel, but I think it was, I had the most watched show. We called it was Debate Night, where we bring guests in and we had debates and discussions.
Right.
I think the reason
On
it was
which
successful,
topics?
a variety of topics.
Okay.
You could choose, you know, I don't know, contemporary issues around politics, current
Wonderful.
affairs, terrorism, you
Pretty
know,
much
social
everything.
issues. Yeah, pretty much whatever was in the news that week. We would have discussions. Does God exist? You know what, Islamophobia, the rise of freedom of speech and liberal values, and in that context. But I think it's to do with the fact that for many people, for Muslims in particular, our faith
Right.
is very important. It guides us, gives us that direction. And I think that's why it was such a success. And then, you know, more recently, I'm now at British Muslim TV, where again, it's a lifestyle program I do called Questions, where we interview global guests from around the world who made a lasting contribution. And I think that's really important. Faith is very important. That's why when you talk about the people from Nelson or people from Rochdale or Manchester, wherever we come from, working class people who are struggling. Life is really, really tough in the UK, but because of their iman and because of their belief in the sense of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where that we're one ummah, one body, when one part of the body hurts, we should all feel it. And that's why whenever, I think it's a penny appeal, whatever's happening around the world, whether it's Palestine, whether it's, you know, the Rohingya community in Syria, in Yemen, you know, whenever we ask people to give, they give a huge amount of money regardless.
Exactly. And, you know, in addition to that, thank you very much for saying that again, because I want people to, you know, kind of understand the very passion they have. And this is something which I've realized since I go very often, you know, I'm very regular with UK. So I
look forward
think
to hosting you when you're
yeah,
next there.
inshallah, inshallah. So, you know, what I've looked forward, in fact, what I've realized over there is that people are more inclined towards their religion. People are more closer to Allah.
True.
And that's something which I've seen, you know, once they leave from Pakistan, once they go over there, you know, their faith, their belief, you know, the system is just very overwhelming. And, you know, for a moment you feel like, hey, you know what, it's better to stay here than to go back to Pakistan. But unfortunately, but just now what I wanted to ask you was that for somebody as amazing as you know, you've been talking about terrorism, extremism, you've been talking about people you might not have even seen. You know, that lady who was actually being put in prison for naming a teddy bear, you kind of led a very amazing media campaign. But, you know, when you start on to such a media campaign, there's a lot of backlash you get. You know, for example, when we do shows, people love them, but God forbid, you know, there can be a chunk of people who might not even like it. So they're going to comment against it. Once you start to read all of those comments, they take a toll on you. So how did you deal with, you know, making sure that you're going to stay strong no matter what happens, what people say? Is it that inner voice which tells you, Shafiq, मैं ठीक काम कर रहा हूँ और मैंने यही करते रहना है? Or is it the people around you who are going to tell you, Shafiq, you're doing a great job?
I think when I first started, I wanted to please everybody. You know, if it's about reflection, let's reflect. I wanted to please everybody, and I was quite hurt by every comment, because if you work with sincerity and you think you're doing good, you would expect the whole world to support you. But, you know, if you're talking, for example, let's talk about forced marriages. You know, there was a distinct lack of an awareness within our community about this issue. One, it goes against Islam. You know, choice, individual choice for both men and women to choose their marriage partner is absolutely an essential requirement under Sharia. You can't force anybody. Yet we disregarded that, and we were having people being forced to be married. So I think there was an education bit. And then when you're speaking up against cultural norms in your community, a minority community, minority cultural norm, you do then get a backlash. You get people who would disagree with you and want to take you down. So you get of that. On terrorism, for example, when you speak up as strong as I did, you know, I got death threats in 2013. I was on a hit list by Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab. And really it's about, you know, for example, here in Pakistan, you think about the 70,000 people who lost their lives, you know, in the war on terror. And so, you know, anybody who knows what it's like to live under those times, I'm just so glad, thank to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Pakistan has got through that and is, you know, rebuilding, and alhamdulillah has a security.
So it's not just forced marriages, you've even been speaking about honor killings as well, you know, for all of those white boys, you've been raising your voices too as well. So you've not been restricting yourself to your community only. You know, you've actually spoken in favor of almost everyone, which you thought, hey, you know what, they're on the right journey or the right path. So please shed light onto that.
Yeah, so one of the other things that we have in the UK is a very small people, child sexual exploitation, where children, girls were being groomed. Majority of the victims in those cases were white. And the perpetrators were usually of Asian background. Again, you're going against the community, so you do get a backlash. But I think, you know, time has proven that I was right on that, because I've taken inspiration from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, stand up against injustice,
Right.
whether it's against yourself
Right.
and your family, and remain steadfast. And I think if you
Right.
believe in what you're doing, you want to be in a just world, then you stay steadfast.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. And okay, so Shahzad, we've seen after the 9/11, there was this environment of Islamophobia where Muslims were, especially those who were living in the Western communities, they were often very, what do you call it? They were very fearful to voice their opinions because that might be interpreted very, in a different light.
Or
and
you know what people used to say over there?
miscontextualized.
People used to say
Right.
that Muslims are the new blacks.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what they used to say.
Right.
Particularly America.
Very,
Exactly.
very rightly put it down.
When up until 9/11, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't very religious. I was on a journey. I was still proud to be Muslim, but I wasn't very much practicing. But on the day of 9/11, my life changed in that I was no longer seen as a Pakistani.
All right.
I was seen as a Muslim.
Right.
And that was really fascinating in itself. I was being judged because of my faith. And that brought me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in a real nice way, it made me, 5 times namazi, advocating for the community, and, being a voice for the British Muslim community. And so, I think it changes, and the Islamophobia that
Right.
we see has been normalized over that 22 years, since 9/11 in particular. We've seen being Muslim a problem in the West, and it is difficult to speak out, but I think if you're steadfast in your values, if you're steadfast in your faith, you do speak out, and there's an expectation. But on the whole, when you talk about feedback, I think on the whole it's positive, 90% I'd say, but you do get that 10% who don't particularly like what you've said about a particular issue. But alhamdulillah.
Being a Muslim in a Western community, especially in the UK, I think UK is a better in terms,
It
especially
is.
yes. I think if in France there's a lot more repression going on the
Absolutely.
Muslims as compared to UK. I think that things are not as bad as compared to the France. So living there as a Muslim, how do you advocate for your faith and make sure that you also protect it?
I
in
think
that sense?
they have that environment. Yeah, imagine the mayors happens to be Muslims too as well. Everybody
But
gets their own
Shahzad, there
freedom.
is Islamophobia
Yeah.
there.
There was, but that's
Was?
that's
I think
certainly
let's ask
that's
it.
certainly that particular chunk of people who will never agree to what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
So it's better to agree to disagree.
I think you're absolutely right. And let me say this, I'm proud to be British. I'm
Right.
proud to live in a country where I can practice my faith.
True.
We've just had Rabiul Awwal, and in every town and city there's been juluses.
True.
We're able to practice our faith.
Even if
There
it's
is-
14th of August, any
yeah,
occasion.
well, and the flag raising. So
Yeah.
there is that freedom. But I think side by side, you're absolutely right. I think side by side we have a culture of Islamophobia where it's acceptable
Right.
to demonize Muslims and the way we practice our faith. So whether it's about the hijab, whether it's about halal meat, whether it's about what we do. So we do get that. And that's particularly driven by the media and certain politicians for political reasons. But I think on the whole, I would, you look at what's happening in France, you look at what's happening in Denmark, and in other parts of Europe. There's an oppressive environment to be Muslim. You can't even have a mosque, you can't have a minaret, you can't even wear a hijab. Alhamdulillah, we've got all of that in the UK, so I'm proud to be in a country that allows that religious freedom.
Mashallah.
Right, mashallah. And I do feel that the French President Emmanuel Macron said a few years back that Muslims need a reformation and enlightenment. And I felt that that was a very Islamophobic comment because it stems from the very arrogance, because that was the journey of the Christian world, the Reformation, the Enlightenment, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So what do you have to
He's
say about
absolutely right. We do need change.
true Reformation?
But we need to go back to the prophetic tradition.
True.
We need to go back to
In
the way
the image of
Rasulullah.
Islam, not
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, certainly we wouldn't tell the Christians how to carry out their reformation or their changes.
Right.
But as Muslims, we need to return back to our roots in
True.
terms of our compassion, our akhlaq, our
True.
character, how we interact with each other.
Right.
I think we've seen the worst of humanity during these floods, but we've also seen the best of humanity. I mean, I've been overwhelmed by, as Penny Peel Ambassador, traveling to some of these places. For example, we were in Rajampur. We had 16 volunteers from here in Pakistan who give up their time over the period to come and help us. We have thousands of donors here in Pakistan who give to Penny Appeal. So Pakistan it's not just a nation that takes; it's also a nation that has got big hearts and wants to help, and I've seen that
Alhamdulillah.
compassion and desire.
And that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Shafiq Bhai, for being with
Absolutely
us.
loved
It
it.
was lovely to be in conversation with you. And
I
please-
can relax now, yeah?
Yeah, you can
That
relax
was a
and
difficult
and
questions.
continue and continue
bless
to
you.
do what you're doing for the Pakistani people and the other communities as well. You've always made sure that it's going to be a balance. So thank you very much for that too as well. Thank you very much for putting Pakistan first.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much for putting being a British first too as well. You know, I think it's as important because they enable you to do so, which is why only you're able to do so as well. But for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, you know, the sole purpose of today was to learn. If you've learned anything from Shafiq Bhai or Mira and Malik, please make sure that you practice it in your life.
Right, wonderful. And with that, we will wrap up our segment and say our goodbye. So until next time, it's a goodbye and a good morning.
Good morning.